Just give us your take. We are waiting for some form of retaliation from Iran. What do you think it could look like?
Good morning and nice to be with you. Iran doesn't have many good options, but it is certainly going to respond in some way. It was trying to avoid a direct confrontation with the United States, wanting to keep the war contained between Israel and Iran, seeing a contained war as the best avenue to a diplomatic off-ramp. With the US involved, obviously, Iran is going to escalate. There are scenarios coming from the Iranian parliament that include closing the Straits of Hormuz. Parliament does not have final say. Those kind of decisions rest with the Supreme Leader, but the Supreme National Security Council. And it's not easy to close the Straits of Hormuz, but certainly that would send economic shocks. Secondly, Iran could strike U.S. military bases, particularly those that have been emptied, similar to what Iran did after Qasem Soleimani, Iran's IRGC commander, was killed by the U.S. in 2020. That would be more of a calibrated response, showing that it has the capability to strike, but also it would be more of a face-saving maneuver designed to take Iran back to the negotiating table again. Thirdly, of course, there are broader escalatory measures like leaving the non-proliferation treaty or striking Iran's Gulf neighbors. I think leaving the NPT is certainly on the table, and that is being discussed in Iran. Striking Iran's Gulf neighbors, I don't think is a move that Iran would take in the immediate term, really because it would enhance Iran's isolation and lead to condemnation from Iran's neighbors that have been trying to lead back channel diplomacy. We have to wait to see what the
Let me get into some of the consequences with you around this, because it feels as though over the weekend, if we watch the developments, that it looks very decisive from President Trump and perhaps even a short-term win if he's managed to silence some of the threats from any nuclear program from Iran. But there is a view perhaps this may not be a short conflict. It may not be a short, sharp delivery that the US may want to achieve here. What do you think is there potential that the US could get drawn into a much larger conflict from here?
Well, it all rests currently with the Supreme Leader, who is in a bunker and hiding. The Iranian policy response is dependent on his statements, and I think that there is a debate going on across the system. Once the Iranians do respond, that is, of course, the risk for the United States and for a U.S. president that came into office promising to end forever wars. And the Middle East has been home to a number of U.S.-led forever wars. So this is a very dangerous moment. Problematic is that President Trump is very impatient and impulsive. And without decisive and calm leadership in the White House, this can very much escalate. And he is certainly engaging in a campaign of psychological warfare, which is very alarming to the international community and, of course, to the region.
Dr. Vakil, actually, I'm going to push back as well, just to give the other side of this one as well. Many would argue this was a calm reaction. It wasn't an indiscriminate strike from the United States. It was a very clear, directed set of strikes at Isfahan, Natanz and Fordo as well. Many in the US would argue, actually, these were very decisive strikes at a regime which the IAEA has already said is in breach of non-proliferation targets.
Yes, indeed. The IAEA has said in early June that Iran is in breach, but the IAEA has also said very loudly and clearly, particularly over the past few days, that Iran has not made a decision to weaponize its program, doesn't have nuclear weapons. There's a lot of inflammation of the data that is out there. And this attack that the Israelis launch on June 13th is with evidence that hasn't been released. So we are in very dangerous territory. It's worthwhile noting that we've been talking about Iran being on the brink of nuclear weapons for over 20 years now. The U.S., however, to your point, was very focused in its strikes, really looking to set back Iran's nuclear program.
Dr. Vakil.
We don't know if that's been achieved, though. And in fact, it is being reported by intelligence agencies.
Dr. Vakil.
that we don't know if that has been achieved, and that's important because Iran could start taking more serious measures going forward.
If I may push back again, sorry. I hear what certain parts of the intelligence community and the IAEA say about the ability of Iran to create a nuclear weapon and deliver the payload of that. But this is a nation which is clearly building up its enrichment capacity to get to nuclear weapon status. That is no reason why you would have 60% enrichment on the way to 90%, which is the level I understand, again, I'm no expert, you need to get to nuclear levels, way above what you would need for a civilian nuclear program. I'm sorry, that is a clear aim if you are going to 60% and then beyond. The clear aim is to build a nuclear weapon. Why are we playing roulette with this? And why are we playing roulette with a regime which is on its way to creating enrichment of uranium that can create a payload?
I don't think that the IAEA has ever raised the issue of a payload. What Iran certainly doesn't have, and that has been clearly stated by all of the intelligence agencies, is the payload. It has all of the equipment in place. It could very much get to the point where it weaponizes, but it has chosen not to. It's important to actually not rewrite history, but remember the history. 2015, Iran agreed on the first page of the Iran nuclear agreement never to pursue a nuclear weapon. It hasn't weaponized its program. It is a threshold state using its advancements, and that was the intention. Excuse me, using its advancements to try and come to a deal. It didn't mean that the deal was necessarily going to work, didn't mean that Iran wouldn't weaponize, but diplomacy was certainly the more sage way forward. Had the diplomacy failed, we could have then gone down the military action. We are now at a dangerous point.
Indeed. And look, I think this is a really important debate. I'm definitely trying to hear your view and just give you the alternative as well. So I'm certainly not shutting you down. But why? The alternative. But why would any peaceful nation enrich uranium to 60%? Why would any peaceful nation that does not have an ultimate intention of creating a nuclear weapon enrich uranium to 60%?
I don't want to be seen to be defending the activities of the Islamic Republic of Iran, but I invite you to recall that in 2015, Iran was enriching at 3.67 and continued to do so until 2018, verified 14 times by the IAEA. When the United States withdrew from the JCPOA in 2019, Iran began to accelerate its program in the hope that there could be a new deal, using its nuclear capabilities as leverage for a new deal. I think that was the pathway for Iran. It certainly was no guarantee that there would be a new deal. And in fact, Biden administration officials were often frustrated by their inability to arrive at a new deal. But nevertheless, I think we are jumping over history and making assumptions about Iran's nuclear advancements without really having a proper assessment of the direction of travel, the history, and the fact that the country still has not weaponized its program.
Dr. Vakil, let me jump in here with a fresh line out of Iran's foreign ministry. This is a spokesperson for the foreign ministry saying that Tehran expects Russia to play a role based on bilateral strategic partnership. President Putin is not really in a position here to be doling out support to Iran when it's already struggling with support for its own efforts in Ukraine. What role can we realistically expect Russia to play here?
Well, I don't really anticipate the Russians to play a significant role. In fact, this is an opportunity for President Putin to showcase his ties with the Iranians while actually not being supportive beyond a sort of rhetorical public way. Iran and Russia do have a defense agreement that was recently ratified in both countries' parliaments, but Russia isn't going to resupply or provide Iran with the same defense support in the way that the Iranians did for the Russians during the outbreak of the war against Ukraine. So Iran is alone. It doesn't have natural allies, and it is facing some very tough decisions in the days, if not weeks ahead.